All right, well, hi everybody. Welcome to part 2 of our intro to After Effects tutorial. So you should have your project. If you still have it open from the first video, fine. If not, double click it and go ahead and open it. And what we should have here on the composition is your name animating across the top here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to create a shape out of a shape layer. So if you go up to layer, you're going to say new and you're going to say shape layer. So go ahead and choose that. And you're going to see some new boxes pop up here. What you want to do is there's a little area here where there's a star and then there's kind of a transparency grid. Sorry, this is a little bit hard to see. You want to make sure that the star is selected. So if the transparency grid is blue, make sure you click the star so that appears there. And then we're going to go over to the rectangle tool, which is just this little square right here. And there are different shape tools that we have access to. So what I want you to do is click down on the rectangle tool, and I want you to choose the star tool. We'll go ahead and make a star today. Okay? You're gonna have a fill color here that's chosen, and I'm gonna go ahead and choose maybe a lighter green for my star. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color here. Hit OK. So now what you're going to do is you're going to come down to your canvas area. You're going to see that there's a new shape layer here and that it is selected. And you're just going to click and drag to create that star. And it doesn't really matter. If you hold Shift down, it will lock the star into place as being, perfectly vertical, where the point is, meeting the exact middle of the star, but it doesn't matter too much. Okay, so the star is there. I don't need my star tool anymore, so I'm gonna use my hotkey. We're gonna hit V to have that selection tool pop up, and then there's your star. So let's say that this star is fine, but that I wish it actually was a little bit bigger. What we can we can do is just make the scale a little larger. So if we go down to our shape layer, you're going to see that there are contents, and then we have this new little sub-layer called a polystar. So that's our star. If we go underneath that, it says transform, and these are just the shape layer's different properties. We're going to go to scale, and you can see this little lock chain. It means it's going to keep proportion. You can toggle that off if you don't want to keep proportion, but most of the time you do. I'm going to go ahead and make the star just a little bit bigger. So I'm liking that size. The other thing that I want to do with a star is I actually want it to be behind my name, not in front of my name. So that's an easy layers solution, just similar to Photoshop and Illustrator and all the rest. I'm going to highlight my shape layer right here, and I'm just going to drag it down underneath my name. So now it's behind, and I'm really liking how that looks. So the animation that we're going to do with the star is we're going to actually rotate it. So if we come over to the transform properties, you're going to see that rotation's an option here. The first 0 is how many times it rotates. Don't worry about that right now. The second one is how much the object is rotating. So you can see that there's, the little hand pops up with the 2 triangles on either side for your sliding options. Let's go ahead and rotate the star just a little bit. Okay, so what you're going to see is that the star is rotating, but it's not rotating from the center of the star. And that's a problem for me because I want the star to rotate from wherever I place the center of the star. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo what we just did. And there's two ways that you can do that. You can go to Edit, Undo, Change Value, or do Command Z. To me, Command Z is the most used hotkey that I use anyways, and that a lot of people use. So we're just going to Command Z and move that star back to where it was. What we need to do right now is move the anchor point so that the star rotates off of a point of my choosing. And so what happens when you create like a new shape layer is the software will kind of just by default choose a place for the anchor point to go based on, the size of whatever you just made. But really, we need to really tell it what we want the center of it to be. So your anchor point tool is up here in your tools panel. You're going to see that it says pan behind anchor point tool. And the hotkey for this is Y. So go ahead and click on that or hit Y on your keyboard. You're going to see the little rectangle with the 4 triangles pointing outward. We're going to hover over this red sort of circle object, and we're going to click down on that, and I want you to just move it to the center of the star as best that you can. We don't need to be exact today in what we're doing. Now, if we go down to rotate, oh, that didn't seem to work for some reason. Let's try it again. So I'm going to make sure that I guess I need to make sure that I have the shape layer selected. Excuse me. And we've got the anchor point tool. We're going to move that to the center of the star. And let me try that again. So now you can see the star is rotating from the center. So I'm going to Command Z so that rotation goes back to 0, or you could 0 it out down here. It gets a little bit complicated. It takes a little bit getting used to with the shape layers and all the different things, because you can see here that there's actually under the polystar menu, there's transform the polystar, and there's a whole second set of transform properties, but we are not getting into all that for this tutorial. We're just going to stick with our layer properties transform menu. So anyways, I want the star to rotate 3 times over 5 seconds. So the very first thing that I need to do is make sure that my scrubbing tool is at the beginning of the timeline, and I had it stuck over here on 12 frames. So we're going to hover over that and click and drag it to the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to toggle on rotation, and then I'm actually going to just scrub to the end of the timeline all the way down. It will stop a little bit. It stops 1 frame before the very last frame of the composition. Don't worry too much about that. Just if you're wondering why it won't go all the way down, that's normal. So we're going to go all the way to the end. So again, remember with keyframes, we need to have at least 2 points assigned, point A and point B. We have A right here. So I want this to rotate 3 times. I'm actually going to use my amount of times 0 instead of how much we're rotating. This is how many times we're rotating. So if you click on that, you're going to see it highlights the 0 and turns blue like that. And if you just type 3 in and hit enter, you're going to see another keyframe pops up at the end of the timeline. And if you scrub around, you're going to see that it actually rotates. You can watch this move from 1 to 2 to 3 as you move through the timeline, and you're going to see that it rotates 3 full times. Well, actually rotates 2 full times because I told it to go to 3, but regardless. So now I have my name coming across the screen, a star animated in the background spinning, and the stars behind my name. Okay, so if we hit the space bar, it's going to give us a good idea of what the animation is looking like so far, which is great. Right now, let's go back to this. This little menu right here. This is the resolution that After Effects is showing us our animation back to us. So what this is this can eat up a lot of the processing power in your computer. So when you're dealing with complicated animations or you feel like your computer's slowing down, you can actually choose to go down a little bit. So if we choose to go to 1/4 instead, you can see that this becomes pixelated and blurry. And don't worry, it doesn't mean that your project's pixelated and blurry. It's just showing this back to you at a lower resolution so that it can process a little bit better. So a lot of times I will work in 1/4 when I'm working in After Effects because it gives me a better sense of the movement when I hit the space bar. So basically, if this is at 1/4 resolution, this is going to play this back to me in more of a real-time example than, sorry, my dog's making all kinds of noise in the background. This is going to play back to me in a faster playback, a more real-time playback than if I had it in full. Now, the things that we're dealing with in this particular tutorial really aren't that complicated, so it's, it's not too taxing on your on your computer, but it will get more complicated as the term goes forward. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back onto full just for this tutorial, and you're going to see that our crisp lines return back to us here. Okay, so now we've done position and rotate, and now we're going to move on to scale and opacity, and then we'll be done with this particular tutorial. So I'm going to take my scribbing tool back to the beginning of the timeline, and let's go ahead and do another text layer. And I'm going to choose the T here, and we're going to add another text layer. So let's add it down below the star, and you can say whatever you want. So I am going to say, is excited because I am so excited for this class. This is one of my favorite classes to teach. So I'm going to make the text size a little bit smaller, and so that it's fitting into my title safe area. So there I am. I've said I'm excited. I am going to have this text centered in the middle right here. So you should have that in your paragraph option here. And then I am going to go ahead and just leave it at that. So I'm going to hit V, which gives me my selection tool. I think when you're using text, you have to actually go up and click it. The V quick hotkey doesn't really work very well. And so what we'll do is we're going to first animate the scale of is excited, and then we're going to animate the opacity of it so that it's popping up. That it'll sort of like become large, and then we'll make it fade away. So we're going to apply 2 animations to this particular layer. So I'm going to come over to my layers panel, and I'm just going to toggle up what I had for the shape layer 1, which is the star. And if I am going to be a good digital artist, it's actually a really good idea to name all of your layers. So let's go ahead and just rename this layer. So shape layer 1, if you control click or right click on it, if you're on a PC and you choose rename, I'm just going to name it star. You can also name it when you create it, just so you know. So anyways, is excited. Okay, so we need to do a couple of things here. Let's toggle down so that we can see our transform properties. The first thing that we need to do is move the anchor point. See how, and the anchor point for text layers is always going to be sitting on the bottom. So we need to move that into a little bit more of the center. So let's go up here and choose our anchor point tool. We're going to take that anchor point and just move it in between the two red points that you're seeing in the center of the text. Okay, so that's all good. So perfect. So let's kind of look at our animation. So Carmen comes across the screen, and I think I want is excited to come in right about where my name is at the center here towards the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell After Effects a few more things than just point A and point B. This is where things, we're adding more than one animation command to transform properties on a particular layer. So the very first thing is that I need to toggle on scale for the animation, or toggle on my scale animation. And I actually want the scale of is excited to start at 0 at the beginning of the timeline. So I'm going to take the first one here and I'm going to type in 0 and hit enter. And since these links are locked, it's going to automatically put the other one at 0 as well. So scale for X and Y, which is width and height, are both at 0 right now. And so you're not going to see anything. When it gets to the point where Carmen is in the center of the top, I'm going to say that I would like these to be at 100%. So what's going to happen is it's going to grow from 0 here at point A, and then it's going to become 100% right here when Carmen is centered over the top. So let's go over here and click the first one again, and we're going to type in 100, enter, and you're going to see it pops up to 100%. And then if you scrub back, you'll see that it grows over time and becomes 100% in exactly the time I told it to. Well, I want to make sure that I save my work because I've worked really hard on this animation. So let's just go to File and save the project where it's at. You want to get into a good habit of just hitting Command S every now and then. You can do a setting in your preferences where it auto saves at a particular time. And that's a good idea to, some people have it set to auto save like every 10 minutes or something. So that's something that you can look into, or perhaps we'll go over it in a little bit more advanced tutorial. All right, so Carmen is excited, and then as Carmen moves off the screen, I would like is excited to fade away. And I'm actually going to have it fade away maybe right after the C exits the frame. Okay? So this is where we're going to animate opacity. So we're going to come over to opacity. Opacity is at 100% right now, and that's actually what we want. So let's toggle on the time clock for opacity. It's at 100%. Okay, and we'll say that we want it to fade to 0 by the end of the 5 seconds. So we're going to bring our scrubbing tool down here to the end, and we're going to come in here to opacity, click on that 100. We're going to hit 0 and enter. And now what you're going to see is is excited fades away into the sunset over time. And you can see the opacity numbers here changing as the scrubbing tool glides over that, okay? Now, there are a lot of really complicated things in motion design and animation. There's a lot of different ways that you can, make things really complex, but I would say the very essence of motion design is position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Those are your 4 basics that you're going to find that you use the most in motion graphics design. So we've covered it here in this tutorial, so you should feel good that you've got your 4 basics: position, scale, rotation, opacity. We've also made text layers, shape layers, and a solid layer as well. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to export this in the form of an animated GIF. And that is what you are going to turn into me. So you are not going to turn in your project file, AEP, that we had earlier, right? This thing, you're not going to turn that in. You're going to turn in a GIF. So let's walk through that process, and then we will conclude this first tutorial. So what we need to do is we need to send this to Adobe Media Encoder to output an animated GIF for us. So what we're going to do is you're going to go to Composition, and you're going to choose Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. So go ahead and choose that. And what you will see happen is that Media Encoder is launching on your computer. So go ahead and just give it a minute, and we'll let it get set up into that interface. Okay, so it might take a few moments to launch, but when Media Encoder is up and running, you're going to see this interface pop up. You might not see your animated GIF from After Effects. Well, mine's set to animated GIF. Yours might not be, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But you should see something in the queue here from coming in from After Effects. If you don't, go ahead and close Media. Well, actually don't close Media Encoder. You could go back to After Effects and say add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue again, if you're not seeing that pop up. Okay, so you're gonna have some basic choices in Media Encoder, and we're not really gonna go over the interface at all right now. What is important is that you have your project that you created that's popped into the queue here for rendering. Okay, so the first option here is you have a whole bunch of options, different types of video types and codecs and things like that. But what you want to actually choose is animated GIF. In terms of a preset, you can choose animated GIF match source or one with transparency. We do not need transparency today, so just keep it at the default, animated GIF match source. You can choose where you want the output file to go to. For me, I'm just saving things on my desktop, but you might have a folder that you need to navigate to on your desktop where you're keeping all of your stuff for this class. And then the file format, you don't need to do anything here, but it should say .gif here at the end. And I'm just going to leave mine as name. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then when you're ready, you're going to hit this green button in the top right-hand corner. It says Start Queue. So if you hit that, you actually should see, let's see, a little preview of the animation down here. Let's see if it's going to give us that preview. There it is. So it should go by pretty quickly. All right, and it's all done. And we've got a check mark here showing us that it's been rendered out. Okay, so what you can do is, let's just minimize Media Encoder first and take a look at the animated GIF that was output. Okay, and it looks like I actually, in Media Encoder, allowed it to save into a folder, which I didn't really mean to do. I wasn't really looking. Let's see. So if I go to Media Encoder, yeah, it created a new folder, intro tutorial. So I must have something selected where I said I wanted it to create a new folder. So that's new to me. Of course, I did just update Media Encoder, so maybe there's something new in the update. All right, well, with that being said, I can find my animated GIF now. So it's in this folder. And what I'm gonna do is just drag it out and drag it onto the desktop. you should be able to hit the space bar and see a preview of your animated GIF, and it should be repeating here. You might have to open it if you're on a PC. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember how to preview animated GIFs on there. But anyways, this is what you're gonna upload for the submission of the assignment. Okay, so congratulations, you went through, we got introduced to the interface in After Effects, and we did our 4 basic motion design transformations. And yeah, so we'll continue to build the skill set throughout the term. And of course, as always, just reach out and let me know if you're having any issues with anything at all, okay? All right, thanks everybody. Bye.